I will let people in. Welcome everybody to this session. We're going to give it another few seconds. People still kind of coming in right now. This session is the hop growers of New York, what you need to know. Good, I think we're all set. We'll begin. what you need to know. Yes. So I want to begin by thanking Wednesday's presenting sponsor, which is TLF Graphics. Thank you, TLF, for sponsoring the day's events. And our session sponsors today are Breeze Malt Ingredients, Link to Hospitality Solutions, and Ultimate Brew Services. So thank you very much for sponsoring. We love our sponsors, and we're able to do this virtual conference 2 weeks because of them. And not only because of our sponsors, but because of the great presenters that we've had all of last week and and this week as well. And today is no exception. I'm very happy that Chad Meigs with the Bineyard and John Canzella with Canzella Farm have decided to do the hop growers of New York, what you need to know. And everybody needs to know a lot. There's a lot going on there right now. Let's make sure everybody's on mute. Sorry. There we go. Sorry, he's jumping around. I'm letting more people in. So the hop growers of New York, you know what? I'm gonna let Chad explain everything and John. But there are two, which I guess he'll explain. There's the hop growers of New York, and then there's New York Hop Guild. And the New York Hop Guild is actually not a guild in the traditional sense. So I want, the hop growers of New York are more of a guild, but I want you guys to explain all that. So Chad, I'm going to hand it over to you and kind of dig into this. Let you and John dig in a little bit and let everybody know what they need to know. So fire away.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Paul. I'm Chad. I'm from the Bineyard. We have approximately 9-10 acre hop farm in the Cazenovia, New York region. But yes, Paul is correct. The New York Hop Guild is a business which is different from Hop Growers of New York. We are a 501c6 not-for-profit organization, trade organization that represents independent hop growers and serves craft brewers. So John, I believe, is going to start us off by talking about the history of our group a little bit.
Sure, thanks, Chad. And just want to thank Paul and everyone at the Brewers Association for giving us some time to talk today. We really appreciate it to kind of, tell you guys who we are, what we do, and why, basically. So to backtrack a little bit, our organization has been around for about 12 years or so. Originally, it was called the Northeast Hop Alliance. And that was an association of farmers all the way from Maryland to Vermont and Maine. And we all worked together to, that was in the beginning. So a lot of it was geared towards how to grow hops, how to process hops, the do's and don'ts. And it was mainly geared for farmers. So since then, we've come a long way, and a lot of the New York hop farmers realize the importance of having an organization focused solely on New York, the New York brewers, the New York farmers, and through lots of conversations with the other chapters of the Northeast Hop Alliance, we decided to separate ourselves into different chapters by state. So for instance, today we're here talking about the Hop Growers of New York. That's the New York chapter. There is a Maryland chapter, there's a Vermont chapter, a Massachusetts chapter, and so on. So we're all still underneath the umbrella of the Northeast Hop Alliance to work on larger collaborative regional projects. But our real focus and why we're here today is Hop Growers of New York. And we're focused on the needs of our members, our farmers, and also the needs of the brewers in our state, first and foremost. And we have a number of priorities that we're going to get into a little bit later. And I know Chad mentioned our not-for-profit status. Chad, do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things I'd add to what John was saying is, the Northeast Hop Alliance is that umbrella company, and there's going to be a bunch of us underneath it, Hop Growers of New York being one of those underneath. The reason for structuring it like that is a lot for grant purposes. Like, for instance, if we want to get a SARE grant, which is a large countrywide grant, it could get granted to the Northeast Hop Alliance, and it would kind of spread out to everyone underneath. It kind of ties everybody in the Northeast together. So it's still, if you can think of it as almost like a hop growing organization 2.0 with laser focuses in more specific regions. So kind of a graduation from a hop education type of organization to a laser focused industry organization. As I mentioned, we are 501c6, and we can take grants. And if you guys can see the screen right there, it just goes through the board of directors. I'm not going to read everyone there, but I'm sure there's a lot of you guys on there using New York hops. Hopefully, buy from some of those wonderful growers on that on our board there. So the main goals, and I'll let you start off with this one, John, if you want to take this.
Sure. Some of our goals are to determine, to get better statistics of how many hop growers there are, what the acreage is, and specifically the varieties that are being produced in our state. This is a process that we're undertaking right now. We hope to have it completed pretty soon. And why this is important is it goes back to some of our association alliances that we have, such as with New York Farm Bureau, Cornell University, the Hop Growers of America, the Hop Research Council. Those groups need to know specific statistics, and by providing those, it gives us a opportunity to participate in some larger projects, and it also opens up some funding opportunities for us to advance some of our objectives. So 10 years ago, there was many growers. I think we all know, the trend has been, there's been a little shakeout. Some of the growers have gotten out of it. It wasn't what they were expecting or hoping for. We're very excited about the growers that we have right now. We have a great group of people producing, world-class hops that have been recognized that way. And we're very excited about the future and, the things to come.
Yeah, back when the Northeast Hop Alliance first started, I think it was kind of pitched to everyone that, you grow an acre of hops, you're gonna get rich quick. I think people realized that was not necessarily the case. So a lot of the hobby hop farmers have kind of fell by the wayside, and the larger, more established hop yards kind of are still around. That's kind of a trend we've noticed. So we have some statistics about how many growers we have in the state, but this is something we really want to get under control and really figure out. What this does is present us a lot of opportunities. It really puts our organization on a national stage. For instance, we can work better with Hop Growers of America if we have statistics like these. It would really just kind of put us on the map. It also opens doors to funding, which I mentioned on the previous slide is one of our main goals, and just really have us collaborate with other regions and that would actually take us seriously. John, you want to hit on the relationships?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So um, historically in the Northeast Hop Alliance, we only had one membership level, and that was a hop grower member. Um, so new to us, and we're still finalizing it and exploring how we can offer value to these membership classes, is the allied membership and the consumer membership. And our goals are to um, really provide value, understand the needs of those members, and what's important to them. So that's something we're working on defining right now, and we will have it complete pretty soon. If anyone has suggestions of what they think would be of value as an allied membership, feel free to reach out to us or send it along in the chat. Um, but
Yeah, and please, yeah, and please reach out. Like if anyone has any questions, please, this would be, very nice if people want to be interactive here. So please reach out with questions in the chat. I don't see the chat. So Paul, if you see anything, please
Yep.
let us know. But the allied membership and the consumer membership are brand new to us. But before it was really just hop grow. So we're pretty excited about those two things. So sky's the limit. If someone wanted to join as an allied membership and they could get certain value out of this group, please let us know what that might be, and we can structure this accordingly.
Well, I would think for allied membership for you all would be, is there any sort of equipment folks that are pretty standard in the industry? They would all want to be members on the allied level, for sure.
There's also been a lot of just consumers as well that have expressed interest in, at least helping us along. There's a lot of backyard enthusiasts, and I think it was a lot of those backyard enthusiasts that really were started to go commercial. And that was myself. I started as a backyard enthusiast. So if we can really loop those consumer members in, it could really help grow this entire thing. So we want pretty much everybody to be involved in this and have input to where this organization goes. John?
yes, so New York hop varieties. The International Hop Growers Convention is a group, a worldwide association that collects the data on all things hops. And they currently recognize over 273 varieties of hops, and that list is slowly growing. And we've identified that there's well over 100 varieties of hops that perform well in New York State in our climate. And as many of you know, there are proprietary hops and there are public hops. Proprietary hops are hops that have been trademarked because they've been developed by a specific breeding program, and basically the trademark gives them control over the hop that they created. So we can grow proprietary hops in New York State, and some of our members are currently growing them right now. But certain ones are far more difficult to obtain due to these licensing restrictions. And one thing to think about when we're talking about hop varieties is all of the public hop varieties in America have been bred in the Pacific Northwest, and the Pacific Northwest has a much different climate than we have here in New York State. It's a desert-like climate. It's very dry, not a lot of rain, very, very sandy soils, and all the hops that are out there now have been bred to perform well in that specific climate. Out of those, as I said, there's over 100 of them that perform well in New York, despite being bred to perform well in that climate. So those are a lot of the ones that are out there today that many of you brewers are familiar with. Um, Chad, do you want to talk about some of the ones that specifically do well here versus the ones that don't do well in our climate?
Yeah, absolutely. For some of the reasons that John said, because of climate, Pacific Northwest is where these varieties were really bred to grow well. Some of them do well here, as I'm sure some of you guys are aware. Pretty much everyone in New York State grows this Cascade. It's one of those hops that just does well pretty much anywhere. So Cascades do well. Chinooks, I'm just going to go down a list here. Columbus, a lot of the big C's. Some higher alphas, Glenas, Nuggets, as well as, Willamettes are examples of varieties that do very well here. So for bread in the Pacific Northwest, do well here. Some varieties do not do as well here. There's a lot of demand for a lot of the, the noble-ish type varieties now. Saws, Tahoma, varieties like that yield very poorly here in New York State. It probably has to do with our climate. So you don't see as many of those varieties here. So if you're asking you're a hop grower for Saws, chances are they probably don't have it. If they have it, it's in very limited quantities, and it's probably pretty expensive. I just kind of wanted to clear the air and kind of tell you that's why some varieties are grown here in New York and others are not.
Right, and so the climate is the big factor. That's going to be a reoccurring theme throughout our presentation. And it's an important thing to think about when you're trying to source your hops. If you're interested in using a New York hop, it's going to be one of the ones that performs well in our climate. And I know there are certain styles of beer that require a certain aroma and flavor profile from a hop. And I think, I've heard from some of the brewers that I work with that, it's difficult to brew, say, a New England IPA with the hop varieties here in New York. And it can be. Then, I also have other brewers that I work with that have told me that they, through a creative approach and some different techniques, they're making it happen. Things such as blending has been a big one, using two hop varieties together to create the effect of some of the attributes that you're looking for that style of beer. One thing to remember too is that all hops, proprietary hops, have been created from the USDA public varieties. So the attributes in those hops that we might not be able to grow due to licensing restrictions, those attributes can be found in the public varieties. It's just a matter of finding the right combinations to use together. For instance, one of my brewers has used Columbus and Cascade together in late editions and dry hopping. And he has told me that he's gotten a lot of tropical notes from that, tropical fruity notes, and is very pleased with how it's working out for him. And I think, the more you can kind of play around and try these things or talk to people and see what's working for them, it can be pretty exciting to get, your two different hops, using them together, and it's something totally different as opposed to using them individually. And I know, Chad, you mentioned something similar to me a while ago about someone you work with too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a brewer one time that wanted to replace Citra with New York varieties. So we went through a whole, trial on pilot systems, sampling a bunch of different ones, and we ultimately decided that a combination of Comet and Crystal could be that one that could replaces Citra. And we came to find out on top of that, that it gave it a little more complexity because you're adding, more hops into that. It wasn't, not to say that Citra is a one-dimensional hop, because it's definitely not, but it seemed to have more characteristic to it, more hop characteristic to it. And that particular brewery actually enjoyed that beer more when they started using New York Comet and Crystal in it. So that was pretty cool to go through those trials with them. I think, along the same lines of this, talking about different hop varieties and what they bring to the table, we have to bring terroir into this conversation. And in my opinion, yes, it is a real thing. If you grow a hop in the Pacific Northwest, and let's specifically talk Cascade, you get, a lot of grapefruit out in the Pacific Northwest, and you don't specifically get that here. I know John's described a lot of his Cascades as, more pineapple forward. So, and that's really the combination of climate is a recurring theme here. A desert arid versus a humid vegetative environment that we have here, and there are two different growing methods. Two different environments produce two different hops. A lot of the similar characteristics, but they definitely have their differences. I'd love to throw out another example is our Galena we have here. At the Bineyard, I wanted to plant one specific bittering variety. That most of what we do is aroma varieties. I chose Galena as a bittering variety. I ended up giving that to a bunch of brewers and some specific brewers down in New York City, and I think one of them is on this call right now, ended up making a smash beers with it. A lager, a pale ale, and it was just light beer smash. And the aromas that came off of it were something that I hadn't experienced before, and I wasn't expecting. So if you were to get that same Galena hop from the Pacific Northwest, I don't necessarily think that you would have gotten those same characteristics. So these are still things, that I'm learning about terroir here in New York State. That just given a little time and experimentation. Are things that can really shine with using New York ingredients.
Right, definitely. And I think, while we're talking about terroir, it's, important to understand what is terroir. It's a word used to describe how, a local microclimate affects a crop being grown. So what does that mean? Basically what it means, as far as the climate, what we're talking about is the soil types. Down on Eastern Long Island where I am, we have a very sandy loam. So it's very sandy, it drains well. It's not a lot of minerals in it. Up in central New York, there's different soil types as well. And in each region, the soil is a home to, the microbial life that lives in it, which affects the plants. And then the big one when you talk climate is weather. So we're talking about temperatures, daytime temperatures, nighttime temperatures, levels of humidity, day length, how long is the day, the intensity of the photo period. So how much sun do you get? Is your whole summer all sunny days, or is it a mix of sunny days with some cloudy days? So those are things that have, drastic effects on the plants. Even the orientation in which you're planting, are your plants on a south sloping hill? Are they facing the north? Is it totally flat land, surrounded by woods? Is it wide open next to another farm? That's growing, a crop of wheat that could even have an effect on the terroir. So those are all things to consider when we're talking about terroir, climate, and the different regions. And one thing to talk about is even within, Chad talked about the differences of hops grown in New York versus ones grown in the Pacific Northwest. Even within New York State, there's different microclimates. As I said, on Eastern Long Island, we have a maritime climate. Our seasons and weather is very much affected by the bodies of water that surround us. In central New York, you have the Finger Lakes, you have the Adirondacks, the Southern Tier. It's just a little bit different everywhere. So even within our own state, we have numerous microclimates. Just like out in the Pacific Northwest, there's been some recent scientific studies where they determined that hops, a certain hop grown in Yakima is different, will have different attributes than the same variety grown in Oregon. And they've actually been able to, it's not arbitrary, they're just saying it's different. They've been able to analyze certain components of the hop to actually quantify the differences, lending to the case that terroir is a real thing, and it has real effects. So it's an interesting point to understand and possibly use as a marketing story. Even if you're brewing with New York State ingredients, New York State hops, it's a great story to tell why it's special. And I think more and more customers are resonating with that kind of those kind of stories.
Absolutely. I just like to, second what John's saying. We could really use New York as really to our advantage. There are different growing regions here, and really play that up. Buy some hops from John in Long Island. Buy some hops from the New York Hop Guild in Western New York or wherever, and see what those terroir differences are. And it could be something that we can really embrace here. Is that not other states have such geography differences, and it's something that we could really play up. So it's pretty exciting. Kind of brings us into hop breeding. So as hop growers of New York, another one of our main goals is to really, try to figure out what grows well here. And I'll let John lead off for this. So go ahead, John.
Thanks. Well, it's just a continuation of the conversation we're having about terroir and climate. So if the climate has such a strong effect on how the hop will perform, we believe that it's paramount to have hops developed in that climate for that climate. So that's the reason we're so focused on starting a breeding program in our state, is because we think and strongly believe that New York is a very special place. We're the home of many great agricultural crops, such as grapes, and even with grapes, there's on Long Island, there's dry grape, like dry Rieslings and Cab Sauv, and some of those things perform very well, where in central New York you have the sweet Rieslings do very well. So that's a good indicator of what we're talking about in the different climates. So as far as a breeding program, we are looking to get one started at Cornell University. This is something we've been working on for a couple of years, kind of laying the groundwork for. And it's important for the future of the industry, and for New York to have a very unique, special variety that we can call our own, or multiple varieties that we can call our own. So we've spent a lot of time talking to our legislatures, networking with other breeding programs across the country, to find out what works, what doesn't work, what is the best way to start this process, what should we do, what shouldn't we do. So that's all led us to establishing a breeding program at the Geneva Experiment Station at Cornell that is based off of the successful apple and grape breeding programs that they have there. And basically we would start with acquiring some of the USDA elite experimental varieties and seeing how they perform in our climate. And that would be kind of step one. Basically testing the yield, how well they perform, what is their levels of disease resistance is an important facet in this whole thing, because as we mentioned in the Pacific Northwest, it's very dry, so downy mildew, powdery mildew is less of a problem, whereas in our climate with higher levels of humidity, the plants are more sensitive to downy mildew. So if we can continue to develop newer hops that are less sensitive to things like downy mildew, less sensitive to mites, less sensitive to powdery mildew, those are things that are going to really help our industry move forward in a great way. And, the other side of the coin is, some hops that have great, unique flavor and aroma profiles so that they're exciting to brew with. So,
Yeah, John, I'd like to build on a little bit of what you're saying right there.
Sure.
There's, the public breeding program has been around for a really long time. And if Cornell were to do something like that here for us, we are starting over from scratch. With that being said, there is an opportunity to get some advanced and or elite trial placement here in New York to see how well they're doing. For instance, Triumph hop, and I'm not sure how many of you brewers out there have actually been able to use the new Triumph hop, but it's it's described as a hoppy lager type of hop. There are two more varieties waiting right behind that one, ready to be released. So they're starting to, they being the USDA, is really opening up to other states to see how well these hops do in other regions, which is pretty cool because I'm sure there's through the USDA program there's a ton of plant material that's going to go through there. Not all of it is going to work well in the Pacific Northwest. So if they include states like New York, sending plant matter out to where we are, where the climate is completely different, they can start to figure out what traits do well in our state, what traits do well out there, and it's just going to be a win-win for the entire country.
Definitely. And, an important part of developing the breeding program is what Chad is talking about. The USDA is going to be one source of material, basically. We're going to be, part one, like I said, we're going to be testing those hops. So that's the initial part of the program. And part two of the program is actually breeding for a new hop. So it's kind of a two-step process. So in breeding for a new hop, we're going to be taking the successes of, analyzing the elite USDA experimental varieties, determining which ones do well here, which attributes we like, which ones show the best promise. And then we're going to be using those to make crosses and come up with a unique New York hop. And some of the, I think it's important to mention here, Chad, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about this subject. I know you've been doing a lot of work on it, is the feral hedgerow hops are going to be an important aspect to the program. And it's something special that we have here in New York that not a lot of other states have. So Chad, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that. I think it's important to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure who's aware, who's not, but about 100 years ago, New York was the spot for hops. We did the majority of the country's hops right here. I think they mostly started right in Madison County, and disease, blight, and eventually prohibition moved everything out into the Pacific Northwest. But all that infrastructure was still here. Hops, I don't know if how well you guys know the plant, but they're very hardy, and they're almost invasive, and you have to cut them back, or else they get out of control. So what we call hedgerow hops is just hops that were being grown commercially back in the day, that kind of crept into hedgerows. And, once their hops got plowed under, they stayed there. And people are finding hops all over the state now, finding these hops on their farms. I can't tell you how many people reach out to me saying, "Hey, I was walking through the woods the other day and I found a hop on my farm." And these hops are pretty cool because they've been around for 100 or so years. And these would be some really good traits that we could breed into a particular variety for disease resistance, because these guys lived on their own without water, possibly in the shade, under rocks, in hedgerows. So it's pretty exciting stuff. And I'll tell you one personal story from my farm. I don't do any deer hunting, but we have a lot of land and I have a lot of friends that do deer hunting. And one season I had a deer hunter out and he ended up coming across a hop, and he, called me up on the phone and said, "Dude, you got wild hops growing in your woods." And I didn't believe him because it was on the side of a hill. And how a hop got on the side of our hill in the woods, I have no idea. But it was definitely a hedgerow hop, and it's started to show some pretty cool brewing qualities. It's almost like a tropical fruit kind of thing. So what we're doing our own trials now, we're kind of, propagating it out. It's a slow process, but if this happened at our farm, that was never a hop farm in years prior. These hops are everywhere, and it's pretty exciting to see the amount of these hedgerow hops that are showing up everywhere. And figure out if they're able to be used in sort of a breeding program. So one of the feral hop initiatives we had is we actually sent a lot of these hops out to the Pacific Northwest to see if they were unique hops. So they can do some DNA testing to see if it's a public variety or not. Some of them come back that they're type cluster or things like that, but some of them are coming back as unique cultivars, and these are definitely the ones that we are interested in, and definitely ones that could play a part in this breeding program.
Yeah, so the Hop Growers of New York spent recently a significant amount of time in what we call the Feral Hops Project, where basically we solicited to our membership to, hey, do you have one of these feral hedgerow hops, and are you interested in finding out what it is? And like Chad said, we collected quite a few samples from interested farmers, and we sent them out, and it came back as, some of them are of German origin, some of them are of English origin, which makes sense because when hops first started 100 years ago, they came from Europe. But as Chad mentioned, the most interesting part of the whole thing was that a fair amount of them came back, of an, so to say, unknown origin, which concludes that they are a wild hop that is native to our state here. So we're very excited about the program, the future of that. And some of the hops, as Chad mentioned, have been, put into, our members have put them into production because it's, as its own, it's a very unique aroma and flavor, and it grows well here. So we have a few members that have significant plantings of these feral hops. So it's definitely an exciting time, and it's going to be very exciting to incorporate them into our breeding program. Which is it's an asset that not a lot of states have, and I think it tells a great story too, is about the history of hop farming in our state, and the legacy, the strong positive legacy that it is.
That's a good point, John, that this is an asset for our state, because not all states have hops grown 100 years ago in their state. So an asset is a great way to put that. And lastly, I'm sure breweries, we are seeking breweries to get involved in this. So once we do these these new hops, these hedgerow hops, some of these advanced trial hops, we are seeking breweries to actually brew with them. So if you're looking to brew them, or you found a hedgerow hop yourself, please reach out to our organization. let us know, who you are and what you got, and that would be something that we would love to continue. Why am I not advanced? There we go. So the future's bright for New York Hops. We're going to kind of wrap this up here, I think, in the next 5 minutes, and then hopefully take some questions from everyone. But the future's bright for New York Hops, for our organization. So we've been kind of tossing around ideas about how we can kind of grow this organization and help get everyone else involved. And a few ideas we are having is maybe have some sort of New York ingredient showcase or summit. And I know Paul is thinking about doing this at next year's CBC, and that would be pretty cool. Is that going to be like a showcase, Paul, where we can bring hops to it?
Yeah, the idea is kind of what the National BA does at their CBC. They literally have breakout rooms where growers will have hops on their tables and malt on tables and can talk. And I know that in the 2019 CBC that we had, or 2020 CBC that we had to cancel, there was even like, I know some growers got together and I think Common Roots was made a beer out of all New York, and it was going to, serve beer on the floor made out of just New York with certain hops. Like there's countless things we can do to really highlight New York. And that's our plan for next year.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Paul. So yeah, that was one of our things is, get together with the maltsters, the malt growers, the hop growers, the brewers, everyone, and just have a showcase. And then John, you want to talk about the second one there?
Yeah, definitely. We're very excited about the future of New York hops, New York grains, New York beer, and we're very the brewers. We just want to thank you guys, because you guys are really taking this to the forefront. By being creative, using these ingredients, and really coming up with some amazing beers with all New York State ingredients. So we're very excited about these initiatives here, and we're open to hearing different ideas of ones that we can do to work together to showcase what it is we're all doing. So as far as the hop growing competition, this is something that is very prominent and popular out in the Pacific Northwest. They have something called the Cascade Cup, where basically every year, there's a panel that judges who grew the best Cascade. And in Michigan, there's a big one. They kind of did a play on it, except they used Chinook. So that's an idea that we're thinking about. A creative way to implement it. Does it have to be with one specific hop, or could it be with different ones? So that's one idea that we're working on. Another one would be the 100% New York beer competition, which is exciting because possibly we could set it up so that a farm paired with a brewery and used New York State ingredients to come up with a great beer that we can then all get together to have, maybe there can be a competitive element to it with beer judges to, so we can declare a winner at the end of the day. But I think the important part would be just to showcase, kind of like Paul was saying, maybe even at the New York Ingredient Summit, showcase these New York State beers and what they are. Everything from a Pilsner to a lager to an IPA to a Saison. I think that's an idea we're really excited about, and we're hoping we can make that happen in the very near future. Because I think it is a bright future for New York beer, and going forward, I think the more that we can work together to tell our stories, the more advantageous it'll be to everyone involved. I think having a beer brewed with 100% New York ingredients, it's a great selling point. It can you can develop a story behind it. The farmer that grew the grain or the hops. and it's positive because we're keeping the money in our communities, which I think is an important attribute to this whole thing. That's the definition of local, is really keeping that the money locally. And yeah, Chad, do you have any? I mean, does anyone have any ideas or ways that we could do one of these beer competitions? Or Chad, do you have anything to add to that?
Or any other ideas? I mean, we're kind of wrapping things up here. So, we just kind of wanted to present the question, like, what would you guys like to see in our organization? How can we help you as a brewer, not only use New York hops, but get excited about it and just spread the word. So if anyone has anything, please, write in the chat or anything. If not,
there are questions. So whenever
ahead,
you guys wrap up, I figured we would go to that section.
Oh, please. Yes. We're ready for questions.
Awesome. Jason Saylor, go ahead. And
hi, yeah. So I had a question about kind of I think one of the things is brewers wanting certain varietals, and I know you guys as the growers have asked about, what should we grow? Is the season and the timing it's not an insignificant amount of everything, capital, time, all that stuff. So what is the kind of mechanism and thought behind how you actually take on people's suggestions and what to grow? Like if I wanted a certain type of hop, you can't just go willy-nilly and start throwing in. You only have so much acreage, you don't have so much time. So what do is there a thought behind how much input you want from the brewers versus just kind of you guys figuring out what's needed in the market and placing that yourselves?
That's good.
I'll start with this, John, if you don't mind. I mean, Jason, to answer your question specifically, input from the brewer is everything. It doesn't matter what we want to grow, and it doesn't matter what grows well here. It matters what you guys want to brew with. So talking to people like yourself and everyone else who buys Bineyard hops, I constantly ask that question. When I get an answer of a particular type of hop, we do have a little test area that we will throw a couple plants in the ground to see how well they do on a small scale. If they do well, then we'll start putting it out there. The other thing that really helps is contracting, because that's really a commitment from a brewer to a grower. So if I get a lot of contracts for a particular hop, I'm going to put more of that one in.
Cool. And I do have a couple thoughts on the competition and stuff. If you ever need a brewer to judge a hop, I am always. That sounds amazing to me. I know as Paul mentioned, we were going to have a whole room and much more devoted to New York hops and beers brewed with New York hops and just ingredients overall last year. And we're as long as everything keeps going the way it is, we'll have it next year in Albany. So that's exciting. And I do think that there needs to be portions, and what I would like to see is portions of maybe each festival that we do as a state, or just in festivals in general, have a booth or something that maybe features a couple beers that are 100% New York, while there is maybe a overall larger competition. And I would love to see a kind of heritage feral hop kind of competition, because while I think it's great that there are a bunch of other hops, I think that is a really unique kind of selling point for New York, to see these varieties come up and try to get into the market, because people haven't been playing with them. So it is up to you guys and us as the brewers to really see what we can do with them, where they can go, and what we can make, combinations of to what flavors we can coax out of it. So I would love to see a hop cup for, strictly heirloom varieties, or at least a subcategory or something, maybe. So personal thoughts.
I like that idea. That's great. And now I heard it from you. You're on the hook for being a judge.
And just to follow up a little bit on Jason's question about a hop variety and if a farmer would want to grow it. The brewers you guys are on the front lines, so we need the input to understand what works, what doesn't, and we want to support you and grow what you want and what you need. So if there is a hop variety that you're thinking about, oh, it'd be great if I could have this variety, the best way to do it is reach out to one of the hop farmers. If you don't know any, you could reach out to us. We can point you to someone in your area, and just start to have that conversation and say you're interested in Saz. I'd love to have some Saz. We might say Saz is a very difficult hop, like we mentioned earlier, to grow, but maybe there's some alternatives. What is it about the Saz that you like? Is it the spiciness? Is it this, or is it that? And there might be another alternative that we weren't thinking about that could work to fill that need. I think any hop farmer would love to have this conversation with any brewer. And if it is something you're interested in, like Chad said, it's they can plant a certain amount to try and see if it works. Maybe you want more, maybe it doesn't work the way you thought it did in your brew house, but it's just about really getting the dialogue going, and that's what we want to foster for our membership. And just another important point I want to reiterate about the breeding program is the trials, the testing by our New York State brewers is a very important element to this whole thing, because we're not just going to sit around, spend all this time, effort, and money developing a hop variety, release it, and say, oh, hope it works. The breeding program, an integral part of it is going to be participation by brewers to brew test batches and to see, is it unique? Is it something that is really exciting? Because we want you guys to tell us that. We're not in the position to make that determination, because we're not the one making the beer. We're not the one pouring pints for customers across the bar day in and day out. So that's an important facet that I wanted to just reiterate a little bit. At a certain stage of the process, there'll be enough hops where we're going to design it in a way where there'll be not a lot, but a couple 100 pounds, maybe dried cones of each for testing across a few different breweries, so that then once that testing is done and we get feedback from the brewers, then we can proceed to the next step. So it's important that you guys are a part of this too, in coming up with this great unique New York hop variety that we're very excited about. But it's it's definitely going to be a process. It's not just going to pop out onto the market one day.
Anybody have any questions? We've got about 5-6 minutes. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Do you know why noble varieties have a trouble growing? To me, it seems that New York has a pretty similar climate to Germany. So is there a specific reason why? Is it a soil thing? Is it a climate thing? Why noble varieties are having a difficult time to really take hold in New York?
I think you're right. The German growing region has a lot of similarities to our growing region here in New York. Is there a specific reason? I don't think so. I think one of the things that's important to realize is it's not so much that the noble varieties have a problem or are difficult to grow or anything like that. It's just that they yield significantly lower compared to, some of the other American varieties. So I think, in Germany, they're getting a certain yield off of their pearl, say, and, our membership is getting similar yields, but just when you're looking at it compared to the Cascade that you harvested the day before or whatever it may be, it's much lower. And, that's part of the breeding program is going to be, looking at that aspect too of these noble varieties that have becoming a little bit more popular lately. How can we take those attributes and even just get it to perform a little bit better? Would be a very exciting thing.
Are you guys using the same kind of trellis system, or is it purely just that they are willing to that's what they've grown up with, and they have those margins intact, so they know what that means? Where at this point you're still just trying to like get everything in ground and get a hold on the market at this point.
Chad, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's being such a new region, I think that plays a little bit of difficulty on it too, because we don't know what does around here. We grew pearl at one of our farms, and it didn't do well. We had to charge more for it, and it just didn't work out for us. I don't know the reasons why. I'm looking to learn a lot from this breeding program, and I think a lot of these unanswered questions will really come out. I wish I had a better answer.
I think that's good, and I think maybe that goes to say, like, if a brewer wants something specific that might be more difficult to grow, we should be willing or able to look at paying a higher price for it if it's possible, within a certain framework.
Anything's worth a trial. Speak to your growers. Anything's worth a trial. They'll put it and see how well it does. I love working with John because, again, New York is different. It may do well down in his area and not well in central New York where I am. So trials are everything.
Anybody else have any questions in the last couple of minutes? You had a slide early on that I don't think you answered the question to. And, there were the three questions were, how many hop farms there were, how many hop growers there were, how much acreage, and how many varieties. How much acreage is there right now that you guys know of?
When we first started keeping track of all of this, the numbers that we came up with were about 100 growers and 400 acres. I think that's aggressive now. A lot of people kind of fell off and didn't actually string, and I think COVID made things worse. So we're still trying to put that all together. That's one of our main goals, is to really figure out who is out there. And hop growers of New York being so new, we're still getting a grasp on that. So we'll know soon.
Anybody else have any questions? Paul Lisi had a good question that I know John answered, but Paul, go ahead and ask that question because I found it interesting.
Yeah, it was about the feral hedgerow hops. You had mentioned earlier that some of them came back English, German heritage, but I wondered if you knew what specifically they were growing pre-prohibition. Somebody answered in the chat, cluster. And then to wrap that up, would it be possible to expedite those hops in the open market, and not necessarily drive them through a breeding program if some of them are already doing well?
Oh, absolutely. And there are hops out there right now that are for sale, that are hedgerow hops. So, talk to your growers, and if you want to get a hold of us, we can let you know what farms actually have them. Ours at the Bineyard are not publicly available yet. We're still on the propagation phase, but there are other people out there that do have these hedgerow hops. They are for sale. The USDA has given us the green light to do just that. So yes, keep your eye out for them.
And I think just to elaborate a little more on that, I think the answer is we would like to do both. You know, the growers that are growing these hedgerow hops are very excited about it, and the brewers that have brewed with them have found, you know, unique attributes and are excited about it as well. So I think, you know, as time goes on, those plantations will be increased, and at the same time, you know, they'll be incorporated into the breeding program as well. You know, so they'll both kind of be happening in conjunction, and that's something we're definitely excited about.
Well, thank you, John, and thank you, Chad. We're at the end of our hour. We appreciate you guys very much doing this. We look forward to seeing you next year in 2022 in person, where we can actually talk about the hops, smell the hops, and see the hops, and all of those great things that we can't do on Zoom. So thank you guys very much. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to see this again or any of the other sessions. The next session after this is recruiting for diversity at 4 o'clock. And then we have malt handling later. And then a great companion to this is happening Friday, and it's brewing with New York State hops. So that's going to be a great companion to this video as well. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate your time and being here. Good to see you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks.